Chair Purnell, please go ahead and take us away.
Okay, good morning all. I would like to call the October 21st, 2021 meeting of the Mendocino County Planning Commission to order at 9:02 a.m. The Mendocino County Planning Commission meetings will be conducted virtually and not available for in-person public participation. Meetings are live streamed and available for viewing on the Mendocino County YouTube page at www.youtube.com/Mendocino County Video. In order to minimize the risk of exposure during this time of emergency, the public may participate digitally in meetings by sending comments to pbscommissions@mendocinocounty.org in lieu of personal attendance. All public comment will be made immediately available to the commissioner's staff and the general public as they are received and processed by staff and can be viewed as attachments to this meeting agenda at the Planning Commission agenda page. Requests for telecomment are required to be submitted prior to 7 a.m. the morning of the meeting. So if you requested to speak under public expression, you can call in now. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Wiedemann?
Here.
Commissioner Pollan?
Here.
Commissioner Jones?
Present.
Commissioner Morris? Chair Purnell?
Here. Okay, and do we have a determination of legal notice?
Legal notice has been determined on each matter on the agenda.
Great, thank you. Moving on to agenda item 3, the director's report.
Morning, Madam Chair, members of the Planning Commission, Nash Gonzalez. We have a couple of items we want to talk about, but first of all, let me talk about the zoning code update. We have had our first initial kickoff meeting with our consultant, and what we're looking at is trying to put together a workshop for the Planning Commission. We'd like the Planning Commission to provide input to our consultant on the various aspects of the code update. So right now, I'd like to get an idea from the commission as to, one, your willingness to participate, and two, maybe some future dates. We were looking at something as early as November 4th, which is the next Planning Commission meeting in November. Otherwise, we would probably be looking at sometime in December, if not after the first of the year. And then there's also the possibility of possibly putting in a special meeting for this workshop. And again, I'm just trying to gauge the commission on your availability, your willingness to participate.
And Director Gonzalez, would you like each commissioner to weigh in on that now, or would you like staff to handle that via email after the meeting?
We could do either way.
Okay. I would very much like to participate. However, I am not available November 4th, and I'm not able to attend that Planning Commission meeting.
Okay.
Other commissioners?
I would very much like to participate, and I am available November 4th. I would make myself available for another time if necessary. I think what would be helpful, and I asked for this at our last Planning Commission meeting, is to get a copy of the scope of work that the consultant has agreed to undertake, just so we have that in advance of the meeting, so we can be thinking through specific issues that we want to raise. And then also in advance of the meeting, if you could have the consultant put together a list of questions they'd like us to think about ahead of time, so we can come prepared with our answers, because I find that planning issues are complex and they require me to think about it a little bit more in advance. And so I'd like to get like a set of questions from them. And they can be very general, like, I don't know, hopefully they've dug in a little bit and have started to identify some things that they want to work on. So those would be super helpful to get the best out of me, at least.
Commissioner Wiedemann?
Yes, I'm available on the 4th, and I would like to participate. I am not going to be available in mid-January to the end of January. I'll be on vacation. So I'd be available anytime. I can send those dates, but those 2 weeks I won't be available.
Commissioner Pollan.
I would like to participate. I also am available November 4th, but I would advocate for doing it when the chair can be present. And my preference would be to do the workshop during a regularly scheduled planning commission meeting as opposed to a special meeting.
Okay.
Right.
So thank you for those comments. I think then we would probably look at an alternate date then, and maybe looking at one of our regular meetings, possibly in December then, something like that. So we'll work with the consultant and internally and try to figure out a date and maybe do a poll via email with the commission as to what may work.
Thank you.
And if I may, through the chair, the consultant would be working on a list of questions because we respect the commission's time, and there's certain issues that we want to flush out, especially what we call pet peeves of both the department and the commission. The code will require a significant update. The land use and the zoning classifications are not going to change. It's just really updating the uses, the approaches, and again, looking at the general plan to try to make the general plan and the zoning code more cohesive and more, I would say, workable. Additionally, we are looking at an update of the inclusionary housing ordinance, which will be rolled into this update. There's a lot of housing law that needs to be updated. These items are part of the grant that we received for the zoning code update. So housing is going to be at the top of the list when it comes to the update of the code. So we'll come up with some dates and we will vet those with the commission. Thank you.
Thank you for that report, Director Gonzalez. I did see that we were also provided projects under the Planning Commission jurisdiction that are in queue. Is that something that staff would like to comment on at this point, or maybe you were going to comment on that at some other point in the meeting?
If I may, through the chair, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Assistant Director Julia Krog, because this is actually the time we want to discuss it is under the director's report.
Thank you. Julia Krog, Assistant Director. So this is the list of current projects as of September 28th, 2021, and their status within our office. And so, as I mentioned previously, since these are under the jurisdiction of the Planning Commission, there really can't be discussion about the projects that are on this list. But this is something that I also wanted to check in with the commission if you would like to receive sort of regular updates like this, like maybe on a quarterly basis or something, like every 3 months or something along that line. That way you would kind of see what's in the queue, because obviously this is, a static report right now, and these projects are dynamic and changing on a daily basis. So that's more of a question to the commission if you would like to receive those on a quarterly basis. I saw a couple head nods in support of that, it looked like. Yes, I'm seeing lots of head nods. Okay, so that we'll make a point of doing that for every couple months here and making sure that you have a chance to see these statuses.
Commissioner Wiedemann?
I just wanted to thank staff for producing this, because this is very helpful. It kind of like starts setting us into, it gives me a perspective and a handle on the issues coming forward and to us, and also what staff's working on. Thank you. And yes, I want the quarterly.
Any other comments from commissioners?
I have just one. I also found it super edification. Like, I learned a lot and saw how busy everybody is. I have just one suggestion, and I know it might not be totally easy, but maybe organize it by the column at the end when you expect items to come, so we can really pay attention to the ones that are coming to us sooner, and the ones that are like, who knows when they'll come, could be at the bottom. But if that's a pain, don't worry about it.
Thank you for that suggestion. I think I'll have to look at organization of it too, because as it's organized right now, it's more done by the assigned planner, which is how our permit tracking system spits out the reports that we're working off of. But I'll work on that a little bit to make it a little bit more obvious which ones are forthcoming at an earlier date to the commission.
Yeah, I was just going to make a similar request that it's great to have it in written format. And I don't know if you have it as a Excel spreadsheet or something, but that way we could also sort it according to other issues. Just, yeah. I was kind of wondering, where are these things happening was my first question on each of it. It took a little bit of digging to do that. It wasn't organized geographically, which is how my mind was orienting to it.
I also would like to thank staff. I think this gives the commissioners a better idea of what's in the pipeline. And of course, we recognize that it's possible that not all of these make it to us, but at least it gives us an idea of what's happening, because it may be the same for other commissioners, but oftentimes I'll hear about forthcoming projects that have been sent out for comment to agencies or to the max, and it creates a stir or interest in the community, and they'll come to me to discuss these items, and I know nothing about them whatsoever. And of course, I'm careful not to have advanced discussion of forthcoming items with constituents. But it is helpful to know what local agencies are seeing and also what you're working on. So I find this very beneficial and would like to thank you for that.
Absolutely. I'm sorry it took a little longer than expected, but we got it done.
I'm
And
supportive
that's
of the
it
quarter
for me.
as well.
I'm sorry, Chair Purnell, I missed what you said there.
I'm supportive of the quarterly updates as well.
Great. Well, I'll just make sure that we do that, and always more information is better than less information. So perfect.
And Deputy County
That
Counsel
concludes
Matthew,
director's report.
briefly, Julie, if I can interject. I mean, just to kind of Deputy County Counsel Matthew Gadrowski, just to highlight one of the comments that the chair made that I want to kind of reinforce, is that this is more for edification and knowing what's coming forward. There really should not be discussion or independent research of these issues and projects before they are noticed before the commission with the staff report and all those issues, as this is within your jurisdiction as a hearing body.
Thank you for that important clarification. Is there anything else on the director's report?
There is nothing else. Thank you.
Great, thank you for that report. And so we're moving on to agenda item 4, matters from the public expression. Members of the public are welcome to address the Planning Commission on items not listed on the agenda, but within the jurisdiction of the Planning Commission. The Planning Commission is prohibited by law from taking action on matters not on the agenda. Individuals wishing to address the Planning Commission under matters from the public are welcome to do so via email, telephone, Zoom, or via voicemail message. For information on each of these methods, call the Planning and Building Department at 234-6650 or visit www.mendocinocounty.org/government/planning-services/meeting-agendas. All correspondence will be attached to the item and made available online. To submit public comments via telecomment, a request must have been received by 7 a.m. the morning of the meeting. Do we have any requests for telecomment this morning under public expression?
I did not receive any for public expression.
Okay, thank you for that. And seeing that we have nothing on the consent calendar, we'll move on to agenda item 6A, case number U_2021-0001. Continued from September 2nd, 2021. And with that, I will turn it over to staff.
Morning, Commissioners. Thank you for your time. Planner Waldman for Mendocino County Planning and Building Services. And I would just like to do a little recap that this project was originally presented to the Planning Commission on July 15th with the request to operate a short-term rental at an inland zone parcel on Albion Ridge Road, located at 32125 Albion Ridge Road, and the project was continued for the September 2nd hearing of 2021, which was then canceled due to the applicant not being able to attend being out of the country, and then rescheduled for today's commission hearing. And staff has prepared a memorandum of the summary of the topics that were discussed at the July 15th hearing, as well as a revised, which I believe is attachment A, a revised resolution showing all of the revisions made to the recommended conditions of approval. If you would like, I can go over the entire project again as if we've never heard it. It is I see a nod of no, of disapproval. I can go over the summary of topics that were discussed that are on the memorandum that's dated September 22nd, 2021. For clarification on that memorandum, at the request of the commissioners, the findings for use permit findings for inland zone parcels per our Mendocino County Code are the #1 item on that memorandum, where use permits may be granted or modified. Before they may be granted or modified, it shall be shown, and there's 4 sections there. That the establishment, maintenance, and operation of a use or building applied for is in conformity with the general plan. B, that adequate utilities, access road, drainage, and other necessary facilities have been or are being provided. B, that such use will not, under the circumstances of that particular case, constitute a nuisance or be detrimental to the health, safety, peace, morals, comfort, or general welfare of persons residing or working in or passing through the neighborhood of such proposed uses. I'm reading this verbatim, I apologize. Or be detrimental or injurious to property and improvements in the neighborhood or to the general welfare of the county, provided that any proposed building or use is necessary to the public health, safety, or general welfare. The finding shall be to that effect. And D, that such use preserve the integrity of the zoning district. Items 2 through 11 are a summary of where staff has made revisions to the recommended conditions of approval, that this project is consistent with A, B, and D. And then on finding C, we have received multiple public comments that have been posted. I summarized that we've received 36 comments between September 2nd and this morning. And so the finding number C and all of the public comments received from adjacent parcels, members of the community, we can discuss that. Specifically, conditions that have been revised by staff, I would just like to go over them in the memorandum. Condition number 9, that the use for the short-term vacation home rental shall not include camping, and overnight occupancy for paying guests is limited to the residence and the detached structure. Just for clarification, that both permitted structures would be allowed to be used for the short-term rental. That parking be limited to, there's an added statement, parking be limited to no more than 2 vehicles, and they must be on the subject parcel, not on the shared private access road. Condition 15, that no campfires, including in designated fire rings, shall be permitted on the property during the operation of a short-term overnight occupancy of the vacation home rental. With the strike through of fire rings, pits will have at least a 10-foot radius, a 10-foot circumference of clearance. That's been crossed out and eliminated. Condition 15, if this use permit was approved, this would typically have a Condition number 17, The applicant shall apply for and receive a business license for operation of the vacation home rental in accordance with the Chapter 604 of the Mendocino Code. The business license shall not be transferable. Failure to maintain a valid business license shall result in the expiration of this permit. The applicant shall submit to Planning and Building Services a copy of the business license and evidence of the annual renewals within 30 days of issuance of the business license and renewals. The issuance of a renewal of this use permit shall be obtained after 3 years of the original issuance use permit request. There's a minor typo revision made on recommended condition 20. There was also a minor correction for typos in condition number 21 about the road encroachment from the county Albion Ridge Road to the private Albion Ridge G Road. It should be A51B, which we did discuss at the hearing in July. And then conditions 23 and 24 are added conditions. And for the record, condition number 23 states, prior to approval of a business license or issuance of a building permit associated with this use permit, the property owner shall furnish evidence of screening and or landscaping as approved by the Planning Division of the Department of Planning and Building Services in conjunction with order of the Planning Commission or the Board of Supervisors. And condition 24, prior to approval of a business license or issuance of a building permit associated with this use permit, the property shall furnish evidence that all log decks and stumps are removed from the subject property. And I've made in attachment B a summary of each of the commissioner's concerns, and then I address them in the memorandum, and I can go over those further. Staff is still recommending approval with the conditions of approval that are recommended in this memorandum today. And do you have any questions for staff, or can I assist in further analysis for you?
And if I may, Julia Krog, Assistant Director. And so the resolution that was prepared for this item is really based off of the comments made by the Planning Commission. I will say that we have a few concerns regarding the landscaping and also removal of the log decks and stumps. As this project, you need to be really establishing that nexus and proportionality, and then also basing it upon standards within our zoning code, which for the inland area, we really don't have requirements regarding landscaping between adjacent properties, nor do we have any tree removal requirements. So this would be something that staff has prepared some alternate considerations for the Planning Commission as well. Regarding condition 23, there could instead be a more objective standard, such as a privacy fence being installed. And then in terms of condition 24 regarding the log decks and the stumps, that's really not related to the use permit. However, if the commission is concerned about potential hazards or fire hazard related to the site, staff would be comfortable with revising that to being removal of all slash piles that may be present on the site, which I'm not sure if there are any present or not. So I just wanted to put those comments out there to the commission. You know, the original resolution was really based off of the comments received from the Planning Commission, but there's a few concerns with the enforceability of those conditions.
Would any commissioners like to comment on that at this point? Or ask any clarifying questions? Okay.
Wait, Chair Parnell, may I
Yeah.
ask a
Yes,
question?
Please.
Yes, and I know it's difficult because of our Zooming to see everything, and I apologize if I'm using my iPhone. So I wanted to ask Jesse Waldman, on those 36 comments, because I haven't seen the last grouping. I think they just came in this morning. I'm not sure. What was can you like paraphrase what can, the 36 comments at all? Can you, you referred to them, were they supportive or not?
Thank you, Commissioner Wiedemann. The 36 comments that our office has received on this use permit, there was not a single one in recommendation of approval. They were all opposing based on the community needing more housing for long-term for employment and the use of housing for our community.
Thank you.
I would add to that I also read all those letters, and many people were concerned about the impacts on the neighborhood in terms of quiet enjoyment of their residences and other issues along that line. So just to be complete.
Thank you for those summaries. I did have a couple of questions for staff. The first may wind up being a question for County Council. In the memo itself on page 2, item number 5, that was a summary from the commission's discussion about the recommendation for conditions to limit the short-term rental to a certain number of days or percentage per year to keep it as an incidental use. And I noted here that the planning staff response is that the Mendocino County Code does not have a regulation to limit short-term rental stays. So my question for staff and perhaps council is, despite not having that regulation in place, is it within the authority of this planning commission to place that limitation on this use permit?
I will have to defer to the county council opinion on this. Thank you.
Deputy County Counsel Matthew Kudrowski agreed that we don't typically have anything, a mechanism for, I think monitoring that would be the problem for enforceability and seeing how we would regulate and keep track of when those days are. Whether or not it would fit within the health, safety, and welfare finding that certain limitations would necessarily have a nexus with the issues we're grappling with. That, if people are generally thinking that they think this is going to cause a disturbance no matter what, it's unclear that limiting and trying to figure out how to word that limitation that would necessarily alleviate those concerns. So I think that would be the general issue there, is even if it's within that jurisdiction, how best to take that forward.
And if I may just add on to that, my other concern would be being able to verify the compliance with that condition, because our office, we don't necessarily see all the different times a vacation home rental goes through. There's, TOT is transient occupancy tax is really the main form of being able to establish the usage, but there's not usually a monitoring done by our department of the transient occupancy tax payments. That's more through the tax collector's office.
Thank you for that. Just as far as a point of process goes, I would appreciate further conversation from the commission on this issue, but perhaps we should save that until after we reopen public comment, correct?
Chair Parnell, I had just a question to staff, which I'm happy to ask later if it works that way. So it doesn't matter to me when I
shoot now.
Okay. So my question is about how the accessory use of room and board became legalization for a vacation rental. So when I read the actual language for room and board, which is what the planning staff are using to allow this use, it is defined as the renting of not more than 2 rooms for occupancy by transient guests for compensation or profit provided the parcel has frontage on a publicly maintained road. A major use permit is required if the parcel does not have frontage on a publicly maintained road. And then it also goes on to say that the use must be subordinate and incidental. And so in the staff report, we don't talk about room and board, we talk about a vacation home rental. So somehow along the way, 2 rooms became a vacation home. And the ordinance doesn't actually speak to vacation home rentals. It speaks to room and board. And room and board to me is when somebody rents a room in a house where somebody lives and they get food as part of room and board. I mean, that is generally the definition of room and board. And I'm not blaming anybody. I think these kinds of things just happen slowly through time. And you don't go back and ask the question, like, has this gotten a little out of hand? And I guess I would say that with the adoption of Airbnb and all these different platforms that people can use to rent their homes out, what we've had is a creep from what was purely, I would argue, when it was adopted, the idea being you would rent out a room in your house to somebody on a vacation experience. It has morphed into renting out a whole house on a property. And then the other thing I'm really concerned about is we're totally disregarding the concept of incidental and subordinate. And I looked through the zoning ordinance. I didn't see a definition of incidental or subordinate in the zoning ordinance. So usually in that case, you turn to a general definition that's found in a dictionary. So I looked at Merriam-Webster dictionary. And incidental means accompanying, but not a major part of something. And residential use is the zoning district, and residential is the primary use. So this incidental use no longer accompanies the primary use when it's morphed from 2 rooms rental into a whole unit rental. It's become the primary use. And our zoning code doesn't actually allow vacation rental units as a primary use. It must be 2 rooms, that's the way it's written, as an incidental use. And then the other piece is it needs to be subordinate. And subordinate means placing in or occupying a lower class rank or position. In other words, it's below the residential use. So it needs to have less use than the residential use. That's my reading of this language that we're applying now. So I think the way the staff is, maybe this has creeped over time, is applying this definition has gotten away from what the definition actually is saying. And the consequence of that is non-trivial insofar as we've had many, many residential units get converted into tourism businesses in residential zoning districts. And I'm sorry, I've gone on a kind of a long way, but I think it's a very important issue. And I wanted to explain it clearly why I have an objection to how this definition is being applied, both for 2 reasons. The primary one being that the way the definition is written is not actually the way that the county is applying it. And that is very important because we're not complying with our own zoning ordinance. And then secondarily, the fact that it was written so long ago and the way that technology has changed to really significantly increase the impact of this on residential neighborhoods, such that we're getting 350 letters for a use permit. It makes me very much worried about all of those units that are converting where there isn't a private road and they're never coming here. And it's just like a business permit process. And if those neighbors knew, they would probably be very upset and sending the Planning Commission 36 letters also. So I just want us all to think about this very carefully because I think it is very important from a legal perspective, but then also from the perspective of the impact that it's having on our housing. And I would just pull everybody's attention to the letter from Terry Gross, who was the former county counsel for the county of Mendocino.
So if I may respond on that, through Chair Purnell. So for this particular site, I think it's important to note that the zoning district actually does allow a transient habitation use through a major use permit. So the similar process that's being gone through today. But in addition to address the vacation home rental aspect and how that fits into room and board. There has been, as I'm sure you're aware, there is the ability for the director of the department to classify uses. That's specified in the beginning section of the zoning code that describes the various use types and classifications within there. Similarly with accessory uses, there's a similar provision in the beginning of that that also addresses that. This has been, and now I will say it was in place when I started here 8 years ago, that it was a memorandum that had been prepared, that there had been a staff consensus along with the direction from the director to classify vacation home rentals under room and board. This has been brought forward at various hearings over time, one for other use permits for similar requests. And then additionally, when the board had enacted a moratorium on vacation home rentals, I believe around 2016, which they then decided to, do away with, for lack of a better word, and allow for vacation home rentals to move forward again. But that included direction to staff as well to prepare amendments to the zoning code to address vacation home rentals. That direction has been deferred over a number of years, but that is something that we've been talking with the consultant who's working on our zoning code update to clarify within this zoning code update, because we agree it would be nice to have a specific section that spoke to vacation home rentals, similar to how we do in the coastal zone area, where it is listed as a specific use type rather than making the connection through the room and board as an accessory use. So I know that doesn't necessarily resolve Commissioner Jones's concerns on this particular project, but I just wanted to give that little bit of background, and I'm of course available for additional questions.
May I respond through the chair?
Please.
Yeah. So certainly you have the power and authority to shoehorn uses in if they're not specifically described, but the commission also has the responsibility and authority to provide correction on that if we feel that it's not being applied correctly, because we are a quasi-judicial organization or entity, and our responsibility is to interpret the law. So this might be something that we want to have as a conversation with the commission at a later date, whether or not this is a correct application of the law. I just want to put it out there. So something to think about.
Great. And tagging on to that, and we probably don't want to do too much more discussion about this today, but I want to throw out my support for revisiting that MOU. I think a lot has changed with the vacation rental industry in the last 8 years. And I think waiting another 2 to 3 years for a new zoning ordinance to be finalized, it's a really long time. So perhaps we could agendize just revisiting that MOU. Seeing it would be. Any other clarifying questions for staff before I open the public hearing? Okay, seeing none. Is the applicant present today?
Yes, I believe they are.
Deputy County Counsel Matthew Gadrowski, just to clarify that we do want the chair is reopening the public hearing. Correct?
Yeah, I will be doing that, but first let's hear from the applicant.
Okay, Ms. Kung, we've brought you over into the meeting here. Yes, perfect. Please just state your name for the record.
Hi, this is Cindy Kong. Thank you for having me here. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
We can hear you.
Oh, okay, all right. Sorry, it's raining heavily here. My internet Wi-Fi is not connect very well today. So in case you lost me, please address that. You have any question for me?
Any questions for the applicant? Okay, I see none. Was there anything that you wanted to present to us today, Mrs. Kung?
Yeah, I went through with Jesse yesterday all the memorandum and the issue that the city and neighbors concerned. So I will go through, follow. I mentioned on the first meeting, I will hire a professional manager to do this as a vacation rental for a certain period of time. Still, I maintain most of the time I will spend in Mendocino County. The only concern is about moving I can start the landscaping as soon as I, visit there, and the lumber, the log. I talked to two person. They're extremely busy over there. So all of the two people told me they won't be able to start until maybe early next year, like February or March. So that might take a little while, but I will continuously try to find other people, or see how that come along. Anything else you have for me?
I don't believe we have any questions from the commissioners.
All right.
Does that complete your presentation today?
Thank you for
Thank
all your time and patience and everything, and your help.
Okay, thank you. That was Ms. Kung, the applicant, and let's now open the public hearing. Julia, I believe that we have some folks that have arranged to call in, correct?
Yes, I'm going to let our clerk here, who's ready to go ahead and call the next speaker, and we'll put up a timer here too. Okay, so.
And Jim or Julia, do you know how many people are in queue to speak this morning?
Yes, so when called to speak, please state your name for the record. Public comment is limited to 3 minutes per person. Speakers are asked to please address their comments to the meeting chair and to refrain from using profanity or engaging in conversation with members of the audience or staff. The first person who has requested to speak this morning is Roberta Belson.
So Ms. Belson, we brought you over into the meeting, and please go ahead and unmute yourself when you are ready, and we will start your time once you begin speaking.
Okay, I'm unmuted. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
great. Okay, so my name is Roberta Belson, and I'm the owner of the flag property adjacent to the proposed Airbnb. I was never notified or contacted by Ms. Kung that she intended to clear cut the redwoods and all the other trees on the property, despite the fact that I was in residence when the clear cutting began. In our severe drought with neighboring wells running out of water, she intends to plant non-native trees like ginkgo and sycamore, requiring immense amounts of water. This would have a huge impact on the surrounding properties. Anyone who's been to this area knows that granting a major use permit for a commercial enterprise like an Airbnb would totally destroy the environment the property owners have been building and nurturing for over 50 years. As you've seen by the deluge of letters, not only the close neighbors, but ones up and down the ridge are all adamantly against issuing a major use permit to have our quiet, serene, beautiful surroundings turned into a commercial neighborhood. Mine, as well as most of my neighbors' properties, are not fenced. Who will monitor the guests and their children from hiking, bicycling, etc., and invading our properties? Certainly not Ms. Kung. With the owners not in residence, there is no one who will be able to monitor the noise level, water usage, fire in the fire pits, if they so do, even in non-burn times. The riding up and down this fragile road in bikes and off-road vehicles that tourists bring with them. This will be detrimental to the health, safety, peace, comfort, and general welfare of all residents and guests passing through. South G Road is on my property. My neighbor Judy Frank and I paid $10,000 last year to fix the road. Due to the clear-cut logging, it now has numerous sinkholes. Who is going to pay for those repairs? Our whole neighborhood respectfully requests you deny this major use permit, which is made by people who don't live here and have Airbnbs all over California and beyond, as a business, which is what they intend for this one. They will never have an understanding of our community and only want this Airbnb as a business. I'm also curious as to why some of the commissioners who are not residents of the coast are so insistent on granting this multiple use permit.
Okay, the timer is set as 3 minutes. Our next speaker today is Seidel Lafayette.
Good morning. Good morning. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Please introduce yourself.
Thank you. My name is Seidel Lapidus. I live in Albion. I have met both Frank and Cindy. They seem like very nice people, and I have nothing but goodwill feelings towards them as my new neighbors, since they have additionally bought a new property that adjoins mine. My concern about this Airbnb is strictly the impact on the community and has nothing to do with my feelings, which are quite pleasant to Frank and Cindy. This is the introduction of a commercial venture in a residential community, and nobody in the community is in support of it. Cindy Kung now owns, under her name, 3 properties in Mendocino County. And my concern is that this is a commercial and not a residential exploration on their part. And I really urge the commissioners to deny it. I had a conversation with Commissioner Parnell the other day, said that there's no county guidelines, but I draw your attention to the major use part C, which says that if a project represents a nuisance or is detrimental to the health, safety, peace, comfort, and general welfare of people residing in the area, that it be denied. And I think if you have received 36 written testimonies from neighbors that this represents a, a negative impact on our community, that this should be very important to you. And also, Chairman Parnell, I'm just wondering, I went on your Facebook page and I see that you're a realtor and that you advertise properties as potential vacation rentals. And I'm just wondering whether your vote on this is perhaps a conflict of interest, and that whether it would be appropriate for you to recuse yourself from the vote. So, in summary, please deny this application. It is detrimental to the well-being of those of us who live here. And Cindy Kung and Frank Ma do not live here and have never lived here. Thank you.
All right, thank you. The next person who has requested to speak is Vivian Reading, who I do.
And I can go ahead, I will share my screen so that way the caller can see the timer too as it counts down. Are you doing it? Once they start. So who's our next caller in here?
Vivian Reading.
Vivian, you should be in the meeting now. If you can go ahead and unmute yourself when you're ready. Look on the participants list. Bottom. Vivian, we're not able to hear you at this time. Perhaps check your audio. Maybe we'll go on to the next caller and then come back to you.
All right, the next person listed is Anne Marie Weibel.
Good morning. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hello. This application should have been refused by the county because there was basically no information on the original application from March. You have received close to 50 comments. The 36 does not include the prior comments for the July meeting. And so you write, basically 6 use permit findings and recommended 24 conditions of approval. They are not very clear, some of them, like it says loud noises are okay between 10 o'clock in the morning and 10 o'clock at night. That should be reworded. I don't think that's appropriate. And as far as the log decks and stumps are concerned, as Cindy mentioned, they are looking for a person to mill the wood, which would it affect the community just like the logging dragged on for about a year, and with constant fires and trucks going in and out and creating potholes with no reimbursement to the people who paid for the road. So that is not happening overnight, that these lock decks and stumps will be removed. I also want to refer to what the lawyer wrote, Terry Gross. I feel this is something that really needs to be listened to, as Marie Jones alluded to, and to create this eyesore, I mean, which is visual and auditory, is not dealt with a fence. This is not good enough. Also, the detached bedroom was never in the original staff report. That was just snuck in. So with Marie Jones' definition of having 2 rooms, that would be more than 2 rooms, and that building is not legal, is too close to the road, is built on pier blocks. I mean, to use that as another, place seems inappropriate. And
20 seconds.
Okay, I guess the main thing that I have left to say, a major use permit is not good enough. This should receive an MND. It is not okay for a categorical exemption class 1.
That's your time. All right, our next person who has requested to speak, we will go back and try allowing Vivian Reading.
And Vivian, if you're able to unmute, and all right, let's see if we can hear you this time.
If
And
she's
we're
called in, there's a code to push on the phone. Star
Yeah.
6. If you're on the telephone, you'll need to push star 6.
And unfortunately, we're not still able to hear you.
Okay, so we are going to move on to Terry Rose.
Gross.
All right, Terry, you should be in the meeting. Please unmute yourself. Ready? Oh, perfect. We'll start your time as soon as you begin.
Good morning, Commissioners. Terry Gross. I'm an attorney for the people on Albion Ridge Road who are concerned about this. And I want to quickly remind you that this is a discretionary permit. You have to look at the entire record You have to look at not only the staff report, your own comments, but you have to look at the public comment. And it's discretionary permit, but you have to base your decision on the record. And here, there is overwhelming evidence that you can't make one of the findings. You simply cannot find that this development doesn't disturb the neighborhood. You have ample evidence in all the written and public comments that the residents of this community believe it will disturb their peace and enjoyment of their properties. You cannot ignore that evidence without being exposed legally. So you have to base this permit on findings that are grounded in the evidence before you. With all due respect to staff, this evidence is pretty wholly cursorily dealt with. And the other important point is whether you like Airbnb or not, they are accessory uses. Commissioner Marie Jones is on the right path. An accessory use requires a primary use that meets the zoning district, which here is rural residential. Yes, these kinds of permits are permitted. If you look at my letter, they have been permitted over time by the Planning Commission, but under very, very limited circumstances, and always where there is a primary use. There's no primary use here of the residence. Your legal duty is to the residents of this community. It's not to owners of Airbnb who don't live on the property. So you must deny this
30 seconds.
based on the fact that you can't make the finding. There's inadequate evidence. Good luck to you.
Are we going to
Yeah, so
try one more time for Vivian?
yeah, we'll try one more time for Vivian here. And then I do know it appears we do have other callers on the line as well that did not sign up to speak under telecomment. But we will give them the opportunity to provide their comment here as well. So Vivian, we've brought you in. Your audio is able to work this time. We'll just see here. Yes, we've given you the permission to unmute, Vivian, but we're not able to hear you.
Let's see here. We have is for the
Next
other
item. I saw we had some folks down, I thought further down. Oh, but it looks like they may have dropped off the line. So it looks like we've lost the other folks off the line here. So unfortunately, I don't think we're going to be able to hear from Vivian. Vivian, if you're able to call in an alternate way, that might allow us to be able to hear your comments on this item.
okay.
So I believe Chair Purnell, at this point, that would conclude public comment as we haven't been able to hear Vivian Reading's comments, but I believe there may be a public comment letter as well that was submitted.
Okay, thank you. And Julia, did you say that additional people had called in and want to speak as well?
We did have more folks on the line, but it appears they've dropped off the line. So
okay, just wanted to make sure we didn't pass anybody up. So with that, we will close the public hearing. Thank you to everybody that called in and wrote in. I know many of these land use issues are controversial, and that's because they affect our communities and our neighborhoods. And thank you for caring, and thank you for participating. Let's bring it back to the commission for discussion. Is there a commissioner that would like to lead us off with their thoughts or discussion items?
I will.
Okay, you got it, Commissioner Wiedemann.
Yes, Commissioner Wiedemann, and I represent this district, the 5th district. And first I want to thank the participation, not only of our commission and county staff, but especially of the community members and my constituents who I represent. And I actually agree with the county, with Terry Gross, that, and I mentioned it last time, I did not see staff report resolve the major use finding for 20.196.020C, that it constitutes a nuisance or it's detrimental to the community and the neighborhood. And I think it's overwhelmingly pointed out and supported by the amount of input. On another level, I worked on the housing element for the update. And it's really, in the housing element, it's really important to understand that it addresses vacation rentals as being that over the years they have like taken over a lot of housing stock. And obviously we need to address how we're going to go forward with balancing long-term housing. And so I guess I want to say that, the importance of long-term housing is being addressed by, and the lack of housing is being addressed by the state in the new Senate bills being put forward today. And what I want to also say is we were successful as a commission and it's before the Board of Soups to look at ADUs, which were like vacation rental second units, and we made them long-term. They have to be long-term housing, meaning because we have a shortage here, and especially it's throughout the county, but especially on the coast right now. So I am asking my fellow commissioners to uphold the major use permit County Code 20.196.020C, in that we cannot approve this application for transient guest accommodations based on it is a nuisance to the neighborhood, and it eliminates long-term housing. And I will leave it at that.
Thank you, Commissioner Wiedemann. Commissioner Pollan, would you like to weigh in?
I would concur with Commissioner Wiedemann. I have a hard time making the finding that it doesn't contribute, that it is not a diminution of the health, safety, peace, or morals of the neighborhood.
Commissioner Jones?
Yeah, so as I already mentioned, my problems with this application is there is no primary use on the property. There's no residential use, so I do not find that it is in conformance with the zoning ordinance or with the integrity of the zoning district. Also, based on all of the letters and concerns from neighbors, I also would find that it is not in compliance with Section C. It's detrimental to the peace and comfort of the general welfare of the neighborhood.
Thank you. And I've been looking at how we might be able to add conditions of approval that could mitigate the impacts. Like really making a legitimate effort to figure out how we could condition this use permit application so that it does not so negatively impact the neighborhood. And I just don't think we can. I just don't think we can. And so I'm in agreement with the rest of the commissioners. So if there's no further discussion, or Commissioner Weed, I saw your hand.
I'm ready for a motion.
Oh, you're ready. Okay.
Through the chair, if I may, Deputy County Counsel. So how we got here today was actually an original tentative motion for approval on a 3-2 vote in July. And so here clearly we're seeing at this point, based on public comment in the record, a desire for a motion to deny the application. What I would ask for, again, just as in July, would be a tentative motion of the commission regarding denial of the application, subject to continuing the item for staff to bring back a written resolution that would include findings supporting denial of the project.
Would you like to so move, Commissioner Wiedemann?
Yes, I would. And so do we want to have the staff write that up now and bring it back to us?
If I may, I think it would take staff a bit of time to work through preparing a denial resolution. My suggestion would be that you continue this, take a preliminary motion and vote here, and then continue the item to actually, I would say, our November 18th agenda, as we don't have any items presently forecasted for November 4th. And then would be able to review a resolution in front of you and make that final determination.
Okay, I move to make a preliminary motion to deny you under 2021-0001, Kung Cindy and all, request for a major use permit for a short-term rental.
And Deputy County Counsel, if I can amend that with the permission of the maker, that would be a preliminary move the motion, a preliminary motion for denial, subject to continuing the item to November 18th for staff to bring back a draft resolution for denial for the commission's review. And finally.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor.
I'll second the motion, so long as the resolution refers to the comments made by commission with regard to our reasons for denial, and is faithful to that.
Deputy County Counsel Matthew Kudrowski, through the chair, that would be the purpose of the resolution and bringing it back to the commission. And I think we'll specifically be looking at the issue of the finding C and that not being able to be made based on the commission's comments and public comment.
And I believe we also heard some concerns from Commissioner Jones about possibly not meeting finding A as well. Is that correct, Commissioner Jones?
That's correct, because there's no primary use on the property. So you can't have a secondary use without a primary residential use.
Okay, so we have a first and a second.
Roll call vote. Commissioner Jones?
I mean, I'm in favor of the resolution.
Commissioner Wiedemann?
Yes.
Commissioner Pollan?
Yes.
Chair Purnell?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
So we will bring this back on the 18th with a resolution for denial that can be reviewed by the commission at that time and make sure it accurately reflects the comments made at today's hearing and the past hearings. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, everybody, for your participation and engagement in that issue. It is 10:11. How are the commissioners doing? Do we need a bio break?
I don't think there's much more on the agenda.
There may not be. I just wanted to check in with you all. Okay, so let's continue then to item 6B, MS 2020-0007. And staff, I believe that there is a request to continue this, correct?
That's correct, due to some issues with the Williamson Act and the owner not showing that there's a legitimate ag use on the property. Staff is recommending continuing this item to a date and time uncertain.
And if I may, Julia Krog, Assistant Director, I just want to clarify on the memorandum that was prepared for today's item that the Resource Lands Protection Committee is more of a meeting held between staff members that are reviewing a project for consistency with the policies and procedures of establishing agricultural preserves. So our memo mistakenly said that there was a hearing. It is not a hearing. It is actually just a meeting between various staff members to review the policies and procedures and consistency with that. But as Mr. Gronendijk said, staff is requesting continuance of this item to a date uncertain to allow for additional analysis that the resulting parcels from the subdivision either can qualify independently for Williamson Act contract or other alternatives that may be allowed under the policies and procedures. I do want to note that the applicant is on the line, though, if the commission had a desire to hear from them.
Is that an affirmative, Commissioner Jones?
No, I had a comment to make sure there was a letter from a relative of the applicant that indicated that they had more than 50% ownership of the parcel. It seems like that needs to be clarified as well before it is brought back to us.
Deputy County Counsel, through the chair, to respond to that particular point. The ownership situation on the parcel is interesting. There apparently is a contract between both owners about processing this application, and I believe that's subject to some dispute between the owners, and there may even be a court hearing on that issue separately in the coming months. So that is a component. I think primarily the issue for the reason for the request for a continuance really is the Williamson Act issue and needing to have those issues hammered out before this could move forward before the commission and the board. The board is the one that would take final action, at least in the Williamson Act concern.
Okay, great, thank you. And why don't we go ahead, since the applicant made the effort to come online with us today, let's go ahead and hear from the applicant.
All right, Mr. Mark, you've been brought over into the meeting, and just state your name for the.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, yeah. We got this property rezoned 15 years ago, I think, as Ag 40 from Ag 160. And at the time, my dad was mostly handling that, and his argument for the rezoning was that my brothers and I would be able to have a place to live on the property, as we are long-term residents. I grew up in the area. I went to Cloverdale Elementary School, Boonville Elementary School, and Boonville High. My mom taught school here in the county, Hopland and Boonville. And my dad wants to sell the entire parcel as soon as he can and move to Maine. And my only option is to subdivide and be able to keep 60 acres so I can live here for the rest of my life. And that's why I'm bringing the subdivision forward. I think my dad has changed his mind on wanting to subdivide, but we have a settlement agreement from a court case that happened a couple years ago, 4 years ago, saying that I have the right to subdivide until the property is sold. So that's going to go before the court on November 5th. And so I guess the continuance, that issue should be resolved before the next meeting. And as far as the Williamson Act goes, we're running sheep on the property. I have photos of the sheep. We've been running sheep on this land since before it was ours, actually. My dad rented 300 acres here from Rena Avadano and ran sheep with Jerry Volmer, sorry. And then Jerry Volmer and my dad and my mom bought the pieces here, me and this piece is my neighbor's piece, and continued to run sheep and And my dad has always handled the Williamson Act questionnaire. I had no idea that we had received one. And this is the first time my dad hasn't filled it out. So as soon as I found out that the RLCP or RLPC met and determined that we didn't have ag use, I requested the Williamson Act questionnaire and filled it out and sent it to the assessor. So that hopefully will be resolved by the next meeting. And I know there's going to be a continuance. I would just request that the next meeting happen at the earliest possible time. Does anyone have any questions for me?
Thank you, Mr. Mark. Do the commissioners have any questions?
No.
I don't see any. Okay, thank you. With that, I'd like to turn it back over to staff.
So thank you, Chair Purnell. We do have members of the public who had signed up to speak under telecomment on this item. So I think if it is all right with the commission, it may be worthwhile to hear from them since they've been waiting on the line here. And so prior to hearing from them, I'm just going to briefly read the request for this project just to give it an introduction here. This is a minor subdivision of a 144.78 acre parcel into two parcels of 60 acres and 84 acres, with exceptions to Mendocino County Code Section 17-48.5A1EI, are requested to increase the maximum grade of the subdivision's road from 16% to 20%, where the topography of the land makes grading to 16% prohibitive, and to reduce the required minimum width of the required 22-foot wide road to a 20-foot wide road, where 22 feet in width cannot be achieved due to steep topography. There is also upgrading the driveway encroachment to Highway 128 as part of this project. The site is located at 17950 Highlands Ridge Road in Yorkville. And then with that, I think we will move over to hearing from our public commenters that we have on the line. And that would be Jim Clark. So bringing over Mr. Clark, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen again with a timer. So Mr. Clark, when you're ready, please go ahead and unmute yourself, and I'll start your time once you begin speaking.
Commissioners, I appreciate it. Yeah, there's a lot going on here. I live just down the road. So as you come up from Highway 28, you go past part of the Marks property, then you hit our common area where the road goes up, and then farther up is where the Marks property is to the left. And as Bodie already pointed out, it seems strange that you would be considering this request from him when he is in legal litigation with his father over this very process. We don't want to get in between the two of them at all. We just want to see that settled before anything happens. So I'm glad to hear that you're considering postponing this decision until there is clear clarification of the legal state of the entire property. As far as our major concern of a few things for this is that it seems like improvement for the road entrance at Highway 128 to hidden Highlands Ridge Road is a very significant portion of this. And I just want to make sure that Mr. Bodie and his father, however this works out, is able to cover that cost entirely by themselves, because it is of no real benefit to us to have the road improved. All it's going to do by having road improvements is encourage the people farther up the hill, the Levin Winery, Seawolf Winery, and now they've got weddings going on up there, and now they're actually put up a concert stage and are having bands up there. And we're very concerned that by you forcing Mr. Bodie to make the improvements to the road below, that's going to even increase the very, what do I want to say? There's a good word for it. Unhappiness it's providing us that the Levins are bringing up all these people across our private access road.
You've just cut out. We're not able to hear you.
Do you remember the last thing you heard?
Unhappiness?
I think you were talking about events or so held up the road.
Okay, got it. So what's happening is we moved out here to get away from a lot of traffic and a lot of public. And by doing these improvements, you're going to only encourage the Levins to continue to bring the public across this private access road. And we definitely don't want that to do it. And I heard you talking about the peace and comfort of the neighborhood in the previous item on the agenda.
30 seconds.
And I would appreciate if you would consider that. Also, I know you normally can't respond to public comment, but can you verify that you got my email that I sent to you guys on 10/19 at some point? Thank you.
Tim Clark.
And yes, we did receive the public comment from you, Mr. Clark, and that I believe has been posted to our webpage. And I'll just make that comment here. The webpage was having some technical difficulties between yesterday and also this morning. So it's been very difficult to get the public comment posted, but I believe it has now been posted.
All
But,
public
yeah.
comments have been posted.
Thank you. So we did have one additional person, Chair Purnell, and that is Kristen Clark. So Ms. Clark, we're going to go ahead and bring you over. Please unmute yourself when you are ready, and I will start your time once you begin speaking.
I just signed in to watch this. I did not want to make a comment.
All right, great. Thank you for that clarification. So with that, Chair Purnell, that concludes the public comment on this item.
Great. Well, let's go ahead and close the public comment then. And does staff have anything else that they would like to say about the recommendation to continue indefinitely?
Not at this time. I just do want to alert you that the applicant has raised their hand in the meeting, but staff has no additional comments.
Okay, the applicants raised their hands, so let's go ahead and hear from the applicant again.
Hello, I just wanted to address Jim's concern about the road because I have similar concerns about the increased usage of the road. When we moved here, you'd be lucky to see one person drive by, and now it's, 12, 20 people a day. And it's unfortunate there's been a lot of road work that's been necessary to upkeep the road. I've been, clearing ditches and filling potholes, since 1987 here and adding gravel to the road. And that's a big part of the reason why it is still such a good road. It's because of the work that, the residents that have been here for a long time have put in, including Eric Levin, who's been helpful. And I know Jim wants to have a quiet spot, and I do too. And I don't think that the road improvements have anything to do with usage. It's just Caltrans wants us to fix that road because it's unsafe. It enters traffic at an angle so that you have to cross the oncoming traffic lane to get into the only lane in which you can enter, which is the southbound lane from that driveway entrance. And the other, you guys know this, but the other reason that the road work is happening is to widen it for Caltrans. Cal Fire, so that they can access it with fire trucks. And I think especially now, since fires are getting worse and worse here, that that's something that we should all be concerned about. And the issues with Levin's use of his property are separate and aren't going to change with the improvements to the road access, which is really just a safety issue. And there's already 20-some cars going up and down a day. When I met there with Caltrans, people kept passing by at the bottom of the driveway, which is significantly worse than from where I live because there's several, properties, gyms, OPATs, McCullough's between the entrance and my house. So I don't even get the worst of it. So I just wanted to, say that it's not so much about the subdivision, which, my dad's probably going to sell his parcel and someone's going to move in there, but that's not going to really increase the amount of people living here. It's just going to be me and whoever replaces my dad. And then the road's going to get way better, which is great for everyone.
Thank you, Mr. Mark.
So with that, Chair Purnell, we would just be looking for a motion from the commission if you're in agreement to postpone and continue this item to a date uncertain.
And commissioners, that is the motion we are looking for.
I would make that motion.
I second.
Go ahead, Diana.
That's fine.
Aye.
I'll second the motion to continue it.
Commissioner Wiedemann,
Yes.
Commissioner Pollan,
Yes.
Commissioner Jones,
Yes.
Chair Purnell.
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
Okay. Great. Well, our last major item on the agenda is 6C, review and discussion of the Planning Commission bylaws and rules of procedure. And these are bylaws that we first looked at on February 9th of this year, and then finally approved. We had our second reading on February 21st. And at one or both of those meetings, I recall that at least one commissioner, maybe more, wanted to do a more thorough review of the bylaws. So it's been brought back before us today to do so. And in reviewing these bylaws, I will say that the only thing that really jumped out to me that I recall from our February discussion would be to update the pronoun by dropping his or her and replacing it with their to be more inclusive. And perhaps other commissioners have other changes that they would like to see be made. Commissioner Jones.
Yeah, so I looked at this and I really appreciate that staff brought it back because I think it's important for us to remember what our duties are. And to that end, I find the list of activities under the duties a little unaligned with what we actually do, and I would recommend some changes. So I've put some rough wording together, but don't like think of it as gospel. I feel like it's just my first stab. I don't think that we develop and maintain a comprehensive long-term general plan. That's really not what commissioners do. I would recommend that we provide a recommendation to adopt, deny, or modify comprehensive long-term general plan for the physical development of the county as provided by the California Building and Zoning Law. And in that same vein, the next one, to review and update the general plan to ensure that it is relevant to the goals and needs of the county. I think it should be to provide direction and guidance to staff regarding updates to the general plan and recommendations to the Board of Supervisors for adoption of general plan amendments, because that's actually what we do. And then the third one, to review the capital improvement program, I think should be revised to review and approve or deny the capital improvement program is consistent with the general plan. That's actually what we're supposed to do. We're supposed to make sure that it's consistent with the general plan. And then to guide the next one to develop such specific plans as may be necessary or desirable, again, to guide the development of and provide recommendations to the Board of Supervisors to adopt or deny specific plans as may be necessary or desirable. And then I think two things that are really missing from this that we do a lot more of than any of these is to review and consider approval or denial of subdivisions, use permits, appeals of staff division decisions, and other current planning as required. Right. And then the other one I think that's also missing that is very important is to undertake our quasi-judicial role in interpreting the zoning ordinance and its application. So feel free to mess around with that language as much as you want. That's just me working at 6:30 in the morning when I couldn't sleep and taking about 10 minutes at it. So
that's a really good use, Commissioner Jones, of your early morning hours. Thank you. And you might have more, but I'd like to ask us to just pause. And I want to ask Deputy County Counsel if he sees any inconsistencies between those recommendations and what may be legally required of the Planning Commission.
Deputy County Counsel Matthew Gudrowski. I was trying to look up, what's in our own code versus what's in the government code on that topic. I don't know that I see 2 points. In listening to those comments, I'm not sure any are inconsistent. That being said, in terms of actually taking down all of those comments and turning into a red line, I guess what I'm curious about is if the commission would want to appoint an ad hoc to review of up to 2 people to review these and bring back a red line with more specific wording at a future meeting. That may or may not be more, if there's two in particular who are interested in doing that, it might be an interesting way for them to be able to communicate with staff and then bring those back so we have kind of the wording all done in advance of the meeting and not done on the fly. We can do it, point by point during a meeting, but that's one option that's out there as well.
I'd be happy to be on such an ad hoc because I've had a lot of comments. And to that end, I also am wondering if we need a Rule 14, because nowhere in here do we describe what happens if there's a 2-2 vote. And I think we need to maybe explicitly state that if there's a tie vote 2-2, then the motion would fail. Because that's the normal way of doing it, and I think it'd just be good to have it spelled out.
Great, thank you. Anything else, Commissioner Jones?
Not now, but I promise to have probably one more item if I'm on ad hoc committee, just being who I am.
Okay, great. Suggestions from Commissioner Pollan or Wiedemann?
I think somebody else could be on that ad hoc. I just cannot do that. And I think it's good to have maybe somebody from the coastal districts and somebody from the inland districts.
I'd like to nominate Commissioner Morris to be on that ad hoc.
That's so mean, but not a bad idea since she's an attorney.
Yeah. Agreed. I see, passing it.
So Commissioner Pollan, was that the entirety of your comments?
Yeah, I think I made my comments back in February and I didn't have anything else to add today. Thank you.
Okay, great. Well, I'm really supportive of the ad hoc as well. I am not able to serve on that ad hoc. I'm not able to serve on that ad hoc unless it would be in an extremely minor and subservient role to fulfill the requirement of a second person. I think maybe what we should do is check in with Commissioner Morse to see if she would be willing to do that. And if not, I would consider it because I do think an ad hoc is the way to go on this. So by virtue of her not being here, I'm wondering if we need to continue this item and bring it back to a future meeting.
Deputy County Counsel Matthew Gudrowski. An ad hoc was an idea to make sure the most number of people who could be serve on this kind of issue could do so. I don't know that one is required. If Commissioner Jones wants to prepare some of her comments in red line form and send those to staff, we'll have to look back at our notes from February. It might reach back out to Commissioner Pollan separately, but staff can also just be the coordinator of changes between those commissioners and then bring those back at a future meeting, possibly to showing different changes in red line, so different colors for the commissioners and their thoughts. And then anything by staff could be in a third, I hope, in a third color, so we can distinguish those things and discuss at that time.
Can I make a suggestion? Since Commissioner, our fifth commissioner isn't here, I'm sorry, I'm just spacing on her name. Yeah, Morris, since she's not here, maybe I can make the changes, email them to her, then that would give her an opportunity to provide any comments. So we would be an ad hoc committee. I don't think we need to meet in person to do this. And then we could send those on to staff. That would at least give her an opportunity to participate in this if she wants to. And if she doesn't have any comments, then that's fine.
So Deputy County Counsel, if I may just interject, I probably would recommend if there isn't a specific ad hoc and not knowing Commissioner Morse's availability, if we can, I will find the Word version I have the bylaws. We can make that available to the commissioners, and they could separately email those back to staff, and then the staff can then kind of bring back in a red line, and then make sure Commissioner Morris is aware of this ability, and then re-agendize this for a future meeting to review the various potential additions that the commissioners have asked, separately inquired about, and bring that forward for discussion.
Great. And I
also would advise against the commissioners, discussing this independently amongst each other for Brown Act reasons.
Thank you. And I think that might be the most expedient way to move this forward, is just to have commissioners work directly with staff acting as coordinators, and keep this moving forward without signing Commissioner Morse up for something that she may or may not want to do. Yeah, Commissioner Wiedemann.
Yes, I would like to know, previous bylaws from previous commissions, if we could kind of look back at the bylaws over let's say we look back at 20 years worth of bylaws for Planning Commission, and see how just to pull from, as a resource, historical resource, see how, because I think our duties have actually, I think, and I could be wrong, and maybe planning staff has already done that, and it's a mute. It was just a thought. Thank you.
I would like to suggest, Diana, rather than that, because old bylaws are not going to be very in tune with today's reality, that we maybe look at the bylaws from like Humboldt County or Marin County, or Sonoma County, another Northern California coastal county, and compare that way. And I'm happy to do that as a commissioner, and I'll take what I think of as the best ideas from those in the red line, and also send them off with my comments to staff, which then they can do with what they want. How's that sound?
I think that's terrific.
Okay.
That's quite a service. Thank you, Commissioner Jones.
So Ms. Jones knows where to send those comments. Please send those to me. I will be the coordinator for this item. So any comments that the commissioners have on bylaws or the procedures, please send those my direction.
Absolutely. Thank you, Julie.
Thank you, Julia. So staff, do we need a formal motion for direction to staff, or do you have what you need from us?
I believe I have what I need, unless council believes we need a motion on this, but I think we should be okay.
Deputy County Counsel Matthew Gadrowski, I think direction to staff on this item is fine, and we will come back at a later meeting with some updated bylaws for discussion.
Wonderful. Thank you. Okay, so we're going to have modern bylaws, and we're eventually going to have a modern zoning ordinance. This is good. Okay, moving on to item 7, matters from staff.
Thank you. Sorry, I'm just making sure I'm unmuted. No, we have no matters from staff today.
Okay, thanks, Julia. Any matters from the commission? Commissioner Jones.
Yes, I'd like to suggest that the Planning Commission take an active role in figuring out this vacation rental issue. And I'd like to suggest that we have an ad hoc committee on vacation rentals, and that we start with the memo that was prepared 8 years ago, gather information about how prevalent vacation rentals are, how many units have been turned over, kind of do a little bit of background work and bring it forward to the commission for consideration. I think staff is super overburdened, and I just worry that this will end up languishing for months. And that just really concerns me, given the housing situation that we have in this county right now. So I'd like to jumpstart it if possible. If anybody wants to be on ad hoc.
So if I may, to the chair, Deputy County Counsel, I opened the idea of an ad hoc committee for the bylaws in particular, because that was an easy thing to kind of revise and draft on their own. I'm not entirely sure how often that tool has been used in the Planning Commission. I know it hasn't been used at all in my tenure here at the county. And I guess I might request time to see if we want to, what boundaries there are to that in this kind of conversation, and how, if that needs to be brought forward as an agenda item for some initial discussion or not. I'm just not as familiar, I wanted to raise it. Bylaws and internal workings of the commission, I think, is a fairly easy one to offer that up for a substantive role. I guess I might see if we can bring that back as a item at the next meeting to see if it's something to agendize or what other thoughts or concerns our office has on that.
Commissioner Wiedemann?
And I appreciate the Matthew County Council. I appreciate the research on that by you. My question is, has the Planning Commission, we've had ad hoc committees, haven't on, for instance, I've been on an ad hoc committee around housing elements and on the different airport elements. My question is, that's a question. Since we've already had ad hoc, and I really encourage you to do your research, but it seems, I mean, are we defining ad hoc a little differently? Just, can you flesh that out a little more, Council?
Deputy County Council Matthew Godrowski, I'm not remembering one on the housing element. So if I'm incorrect in that, that's one thing. Number two, I believe there was for the Airport Land Use Commission was what did have this technical advisory committee that was a project ongoing, and that was put forward by the city and the county. And there, I mean, the primary goal is to be as a technical committee. Formally, I think it was done as an ad hoc committee for that entity. The difference, the notable difference would be, I'm not sure it has a real distinction, is that was for kind of a project that already had staffing and budget going forward with it. I'm just looking to make sure I can do any kind of asking around on my end to see, make sure before we just jump into ad hocs on the Planning Commission before starting to work on something related to what might be changes to the code in the future, and just bringing that back at a future meeting.
Okay.
Yes, so Council Kodrowski, I'm totally fine with you doing that research. I'm also pretty certain that it is permissible because it's quasi-legislative, judicial. We're not actually doing an ad hoc committee on a project. That would not be permissible because you wouldn't have, while you're considering a project, for example, a development project, you wouldn't have all of the information in front of you while you're formulating your opinions. But I think on something like this, we can do that. But I do encourage you to go ahead and do your research, and we can talk about it next time. That sounds great.
Okay, I think we have a course of action here. Is there anything else from the commission? All right, seeing none, we are moving on to approval of minutes, but did we, oh yeah, we have none. That's why I didn't get any. So we're looking for a motion to adjourn. Would anybody like to make the motion to adjourn?
I wanted to just stay on this call all day, so no, I'll make that motion.
And do we have a second?
I'll second.
All right, all those in favor? Aye.
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 Okay, thank you, staff. Thank you, commissioners.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you,
Thanks,
staff.
everybody.
Everyone.